Board meeting. If everybody could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't believe we have any any citizen statements or petitions. Seeing or hearing none. Don't believe we have any correspondence. So the first item number 4, we have an application for an entertainment license for joint operations. Looks like CD management services. Anybody here for them or online for them? It's not necessary. We have the application, so. But basically, it would be a one-day entertainment license for joint operations at 47 Milford Street on April 20th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. pending the return of a positive routing slip. And this is the description of entertainment, live or DJ music, a tie-dye station, ice cream vendor pop-ups, lawn games, and there'll be an ice cream truck. Right. Certificate of insurance, all the necessary paperwork was submitted.
The routing slip needs to go to.
Right, and here's a diagram of the. Pass it around if everybody wants to take a look at it. Brendan, I'm sorry, I can't post it on the screen.
I think it was in the packet.
Oh, good.
So
Yeah.
Great.
That's all right. I have it in the
the
packet.
map,
Great.
hand drawn.
So I guess I would start by looking for a motion for somebody to grant the one-day entertainment license.
I move to issue a one-day entertainment license for joint operations at 47 Milford Street on April 20th, 2024 from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. pending the return of positive routing slips.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I guess I'd be looking for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chanel, I.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to interviews to replace. Sadly, everybody's aware that our esteemed ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman, Mr. Carney, passed away, and we need to replace him. So we normally would, what we've done in the past is take one of the alternates and give them the opportunity to become a regular voting member. But in this case, we have a former member of the Board of Selectmen, as well as a select board, as well as a former member of the ZBA here. So I guess I would, I don't know, I'm going to invite all three of you up and take a seat right here that would like to be considered.
If I may, real quick, as far as I was concerned, I would be looking for the alternate position is what I was looking for.
Well, that makes it
as an alternate member should move up
okay.
as history is.
All right. So I guess the first step is we ask, and why don't we start with David Allen? Why don't we start with you? Why don't you tell us why you want to kind of step up and come every time, a voting member every time?
Absolutely. No. So I really enjoyed the opportunity to be on the ZBA for just about a year now, and to be able to give back to the community and use my skills and experience as well. I'm a practicing attorney currently for Cumberland Farms, but in the past I've had pretty extensive zoning and planning experience with cell towers, store sites, and to be able to bring that knowledge and bring that experience to help with the community amend and preserve really its nature. And it's the reason why my wife and I moved here and are raising our daughter here, and to be able to do that, it would be an honor. So.
Okay. Do you ever see anything that you do in your profession or otherwise that would create a conflict for you?
Not as of yet, no.
And Matt Clark, how about?
Sure. Hi. Yeah, Matt Clark here. So yeah, resident of the community for the last 15 years. I grew up in the area. And so I'm super passionate about law and conservation and smart development, proper person, proper place, et cetera, in the town. And since joining the ZBA as an alternate just over a year and a half ago, you know, I just absolutely love the chance to review proposals that are put in front of us that suit the town's needs. Put a lot of time into each applicant well before each meeting to make sure that you know, well informed and we have a well-run meeting, and that the town is representing well with regard to law and equity and the proper social situations that we run into. So as a former conservation commissioner, that experience also lends well to this role, because we sometimes cross over into managing conservation issues that touch on zoning. Yeah, I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve as an alternate or to advance to a full-time voting member.
And do you have any business interests in town or anything that might create a conflict for you at any time?
No, I don't own any commercial or otherwise real estate in town other than my private residence. I do own property in abutting towns, but there's been no conflict. And you know, I having the experience as both a resident, a developer, I've been able to approach issues with kind of a confrontational approach that has served both the town and most applicants well.
Does anybody else have any questions for these candidates? I guess I thought we could ask the same question and let them both answer it. So.
And those are my questions. I'd like them to say if you have any business in front of the town, and then what your professional backgrounds are, and you've answered them both, so.
I'm actually just curious, as alternate members of ZBA, have you had many opportunities to vote? Like, I have not followed the meeting, so have you each had opportunities to vote?
You know, we've, you know, over the past several months, there's been times where, you know, Matt and I have, you know, had the opportunity to step in and vote. Absolutely.
And do you alternate who, do you alternate as alternates?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have high regard for each other, and we do alternate. So it's just kind of when the position is open, and fortunately it's open. Yeah. And most recently we had some difficult decisions to deny an applicant on a situation that was tough, but you know, understanding the law, as we both do. You know, we did well to represent the town, and I think well, we both play with each other really well with our technical backgrounds in commercial and industrial development. So
Absolutely.
you're getting a good choice either way if you choose one of us.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it's no. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're looking for a motion. If anybody has one or the other they'd like to recommend?
It's a year and a half versus a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
So if everybody has a hard time, we could just follow the precedent of seniority.
So I guess based on that, then Matt Clark is the more senior alternate.
All right. We'll move to appoint Matthew Clark to the ZBA with a term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All right, motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chanel, aye.
All right. All right, a little bit of a lag. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And now I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Lonnie Tinio as an alternate with a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That was
No,
an
I-
easy one.
Wait, you're not.
I didn't even have to be put on the hot spot.
You know what, when you've been a member of the board as long as he has, and, you know,
Thank you all. I
Just did a
appreciate
recording.
it. and I look forward to serving. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you all three of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
all right. Consider the records room. Kathy, do you want to come on up? Is there any, and just, Dan couldn't make it, right? So,
Dan's online, I believe.
is he?
Yep.
So as I think we're aware, there is a letter that was sent from our architect, Mike Petrovic. I'm gonna, quite a few documents with it, but I'm just gonna read the cover letter. So was actually dated today. And it's to the select board, based, and it's regarding records room recommendations. It says, dear members of the select board, we have completed the public bid process for the rehabilitation project of the records room, also known as the Hastings Law Office, or 13 Main Street, based on the construction document prepared by CDBS dated January 18th, 2024. The bids were solicited through bid docs and electronic online bidding service, which follows the requirements of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Chapter 49, Section 44F. As such, the project was listed on the Commonwealth Central Register and Combis, as well as through notification posting at Mendon Town Hall in the local newspaper. So there were two bids received, one of them from JJB Enterprises out of Westford, the other one from Nealon Construction Corp. Out of Medford. JJB gave a bid amount of $136,827, and with an additional alternate for additional work of 29,000. Nealon Constructions came in at 153,500 with an alternate additional of 4,500. Says my recommendation to the town of Mendon is to award the project to JJB Enterprise LLC. The company is qualified to complete the work as described as in the construction documents, drawings, and specifications, and their base price, $136,827.41, is within the established budget. Their alternate price, $29,000, does not exceed the project budget, and the town may not elect to complete the work described as alternate. My firm will continue to provide construction administration services during the construction project. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And it's signed Mike Petrovic, principal of Mike Petrovic Architects. Kathy, do you have any comments about any of this, or?
No, Dan might.
I think I'm good.
Okay,
Brendan, you got your hand raised?
go ahead,
Yeah, I
Brendan.
guess my only comment, thank you. I guess my only comment is I wanted to know how important the alternate number one was, because I think the recommendation makes sense if we weren't planning on doing it, but if we were, and that's a must have, then the bid is less in total with the alternate.
Mike Petrovic, thanks for being online, sir. Can you talk a little bit more? I know I read your letter, but if you could fill us in a little bit more, that'd be great.
Sure. The alternate was definitely a stretch. We knew that. That's why you do alternates. You know it's a stretch, and if the money's available, you can do them. It's work that could and should be done to the building at some point, but we knew that we were pushing the budget, which is most of the money is a grant from Massachusetts. So we knew that was going to be a stretch, and I think the organization that's overseeing this understands that.
All right, thank you for the answer.
Dan Byer has his hand raised as well.
Go ahead, Dan.
I think Mike just addressed it, but we can always approach the CPA for additional funds if we want to do this work with a specific grant. We're up against a really strict deadline of June 30th. So at least we can get this done and use up the grants. And then if there's additional work, we can bring that back for discussion with CPA.
Right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mike, Mike, got your question?
Question maybe from Mike Petrovic, just the alternate for JJB is talking about brick repointing, I think. Is it just the exterior of the building?
Correct. And there is some repointing in the base bid. This
Right.
was to do additional work if there was if there was money available.
I'm just trying to understand the different, if the alternate work is the same for both contractors, why do you see the price being so?
You know, I
significantly
don't know, and we're not allowed to ask.
Okay,
The bid process, as you know, is very, very strict in Massachusetts.
but the alternate is the same for both parties.
It is. The drawings were the same. Everybody had the same documents. I don't know why. Once it's issued, I could ask that question, but I can't ask that till the contract is awarded.
In a weird way, I kind of like the higher bid price for JJB because it feels it's more. It just
I
seems,
think it's more realistic.
yeah,
I really do.
That's the word, realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both of these bids are within the budget?
Yes, they are. The budget is 140,000.
Well,
Then the second.
then the second bid is out of the budget, is over budget.
That's right. Exactly.
That makes our choice easier.
Sure
It does.
One of them is within budget. That's right, right?
Right.
So do I
And
have
I checked out JJB's website. I've done a little bit of looking at them online and they're qualified. They have good reviews. They're a reputable company. And again, I would recommend that the town award them a contract.
I think that we would be compromising quality work if we were to stay with the lowest bidder.
I'm sorry,
don't
say
know,
that again?
would we, oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
My concern is that, do you think that we would be kind of swapping out quality work
No,
if we were just to go with the lowest bidder? So you think that the quality is going to be straight across the boards?
I do. And I will be involved through the process doing site checks and they're doing work on a regular basis and holding them, we have the right to hold them accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything I saw online, they're qualified and they do good work.
We did have a new issue arise over the past, I don't know, month or two with some buckling on the wall. And I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at that.
I haven't, but we can't, the bid is the bid, so we'll have to address that separately.
Okay, all right.
This is it's very specific. The drawings are extremely specific of what work gets done. We should look at that. And I think, again, and you could go for another grant and do additional work to the building.
Yeah, no, I think it would be very helpful if we could sit down and, discuss kind of where we're at and how things are going to move forward.
Right. I have stayed in the background. I was hired to manage the bid process and
Yep.
oversee, as an architect, oversee construction. The organization that did the drawings is not a licensed architectural firm. And they did a fine job in my estimation. I reviewed their documents. We do a lot of work, a great deal of work on historic masonry buildings. So I will be happy to look at that, but it's got to be separate from this. We have to do this project, this work for this dollar amount.
Okay,
We
great.
have
Okay.
against a hard deadline and we've only got one that's within budget. So if we don't do this,
Right,
we've got to start all over again.
exactly. And you lose that money.
Right, well, as soon as you can meet with us, I think that would be great.
Okay, I'll reach out through Dan.
Great, thank you.
Kathy, if you catch up with Mike and talk about additional work, including this alternate, I think we should kind of plug that into the capital plan just as a placeholder so we don't lose it. Because I think there'll
Well,
be
it would be-
subsequent ask.
It would also be CPC money because it's historic.
Still capital.
Right.
Want to get in the queue
Okay.
process.
All right, so I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to award the records room bid to JJB Enterprise LLC of 16 North Road, Westford, Mass. 01886. In the amount of $136,827.41. And authorize the select board chair to sign the award.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chanel, I.
Great. All right. Thank you all very much.
And Mike, if I understand correctly, you're going to be signing the contract with Mass Historic?
Right here.
All right, great.
Printed it out. I'm actually
Uh,
signing it.
Mr. Chair, Dan Byer has his hand raised.
Yes, Dan.
Don't sign, it has to be notarized.
Oh, yeah, that's the, right. That's this, there's another place I have to sign there, but I'll do that with the town clerk.
Okay,
This is not my first time at the rodeo.
Sorry.
I'm aware. But thank you for
as I
pointing
mentioned,
it out.
they've been very particular in this process, so we just want to make sure we dot all the i's and cross the t's. This has been an adventure to get this to the finish line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we appreciate all your efforts as well.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Jim?
All right.
Thank you.
7, we're going to move over the joint meeting with the water commissioners at their request. So let's move to the budget. If Jody, if you want to come up, and the FinCom members that are here, do you need to open your meeting, Mr. Chairman?
The FinCom at 6:51.
We don't need to.
I'm gonna still put it up. I'll put it
Oh, all right.
up.
Well, that's not gonna. Oh, okay. Thank you.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe with my glasses, if it's not an eye test, I can see it.
Oh.
That's right.
Yep.
You think that, I'm looking at a document, I haven't, it looks like I opened it March 14th last time, was the FY25 department budget requests, or is there another updated one that you're gonna open? Is it?
Yeah, so basically, we're gonna talk off of this document here, so I'll share this.
Jack's the only other FinCom member on there, right?
Yep.
So you have a quorum, right?
We have a quorum?
And before we get, while she's opening that up, what's the date on the calendar for your budget hearing? Do you know?
Tuesday, the 23rd?
Is that what it said?
Yeah.
That's great.
A couple more clicks and we will be good to go. Okay. Okay. All right. Budget. So the document that you see in front of you is an updated document that's going to look a little bit different than the one I presented when we had done sort of a first pass and expressed a deficit in the budget. The number that we first started with, to kind of jog your memories, was $620,926 that we were trying to bridge the gap around. The things that we were waiting for back at the end of February were some inputs from the schools, inputs from our health insurance partners, some insurance rates for FY25 around unemployment, general liability, workers' comp, things of that nature. So since then, we were able to take those inputs and really bring our deficit down a little bit. So my starting off point was $520,266. You'll see that in the later part of this document, right at the bottom, which kind of gives you a little summary within a summary, if you will. So the deficit what we started with was again 522.66. And that was the deficit after all of the known inputs were input. And we made some expenditure adjustments. Shoot, I think I'm noticing a little error in this document, but it's okay because all the numbers still shake out. Forgive me, I went right up until about 6:23, getting this just right. So all of the numbers are intact. It's really just the revenue adjustment number at the bottom that should be a little bit different. So I can give you that to pencil in and provide an updated
well-
document, but for now.
We don't have to get a final until it really gets in front of the budget hearing, right?
Exactly.
So This is,
Yeah.
Yep.
we're still honing in on it. So this is good that we're.
Yeah, I'd say that we're like 90% of the way there. So that's really good for a round one. I've had the opportunity to talk to, talk back with each department head. So they're aware of the recommendations the finance team has made. And so we'll just kind of run through this document together. So again, we are looking at closing a gap of about $520,000. And we did so in the following ways. By department, I just kind of listed it out in numerical order and can share any more detail as you guys require. Other than that, it kind of the details sort of speak to what that adjustment is. So starting at the top, reserve for negotiations, I lessened that number by $10,000 and still feel very comfortable with the number that we've allocated for negotiations in the upcoming budget year. 132 in reserve for FinCom reserves. I lessened that to be level funded. So I know that the FinCom had made a recommendation to up that number to $75,000 from 21,330, which is the difference, the 53,670. So my recommendation is a level funding approach, but then to allocate some free cash. If we would like to do that at either, the fall special town meeting and or the spring annual town meeting, depending upon the conditions of our budget and, anticipated needs. And then, of course, in the true purpose of what the reserves are for, are unexpected things that we may need to move money around for. So I did talk to the FinCom chair about that earlier. I think the methodology and what I was thinking is understood. But certainly if anybody has any other questions, thoughts, comments around that, again, stop me. I'll be happy to answer.
In other words, you want to start out the budget with a lower amount of FinCom reserve. And then the idea is once we get free cash certified in the fall, we can actually increase it, which we didn't do at the
Correct.
fall. We left it in free cash and it's still there. It's just,
You just needed
it's much easier to get
appropriate,
access
yeah.
to it when it's in.
Correct. Correct. So again, the other approach that you can consider is incrementally funding this to get it to a place where you want it to be. But I wouldn't recommend doing it all in one budget year. It's too much of a hit. But if you wanted to do, $2,000 or $5,000 up into a stated target of $75,000, then incrementally you can take that approach, over a course of a few fiscal years as opposed to all in one fiscal year. So a couple of different options there. Our recommendation was to, fund it through town meeting.
Just a question on the first item, reserve negotiations. All right, is this, do we plan on using the article that's on the warrant to do the one-time expenses?
Yes. Yeah.
So we've already taken,
Yes. So the article on the warrant, so actually, let me bring up my other documents so I can speak to some of those changes as well. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. So that article is going to take care of the known retiree payouts for this year. So yes.
Thank you. John has a question.
So it's both an adjustment. So it's both an adjustment on the expenditure side that I had made, once we kind of made that determination, and then I lessened it by $10,000. So yes.
thank you.
Jack, do you have a question about one of these ones we're talking about right now, or?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sure.
Very briefly, Jody, thank you for putting this together. Just a question on the FinCom line item there. My recollection, but I could be mistaken, was that that was modified following a recommendation of the acting town manager in connection with the, I believe, having the flexibility, for example, to move quickly in the event that we need to move quickly, citing, for example, the washout that we had on Providence Road.
Mhm.
So I have no objection to this. I
Mhm.
just want to make sure that I understand. That
Sure.
was then, this is now. So what's the delta between the recommendation that we previously received and now?
Sure. Well, I can speak to my side of that equation. That wasn't my recommendation. And I think it's just a difference of opinion. My vantage point is a little bit different. While I do agree with the previous town administrator on the logic around that, I think that there are other ways to not impact the operational budget in a given year and still satisfy the same things. The Providence Road example is an issue where, you know, the biggest issue is getting access to funding should something like that happen and we don't have money available to do so. But there are also, you know, emergency provisions within the Department of Revenue through DCAM and other organizations that we are able to not have to follow the same type of procurement and or funding that we would need to if the situation were not an emergency. So that in conjunction with this approach, I think still cover us against disasters and or things that might come up that are unexpected. So that's why I'm comfortable with this approach.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the clarification.
So I have a question, I guess also relating to the FinCom reserves, which is, so the article on the warrant that talks about transferring to that. So would that be tied to this? So less out of the budget because there is, say, free cash available now? Or,
So, okay, sorry.
yeah.
I just was gonna say this, that you have to be careful about the current year versus the following.
I see. Okay, so this is about the current
Yeah.
current year.
This is talking about the budget for next year.
Starting.
So-
Right.
So what,
Right.
the situation we're in right now, you know, when we did the budget, the year we're in is 21,330.
Okay.
And Dave DeMarsh has recommended increasing to 75K, which is something we've done in the past.
Right.
But the reason it was 21,330 is because you have to balance it. But then what happened when we did this budget, when we came into the fall, if you remember, we moved money around. We had a significant amount of free cash, which we would normally have moved into FinCom reserve,
Right.
and we didn't do it. So for
Okay.
the current year, we did have the money. The difference is we just didn't have the easy mechanism to get at it. So the idea was rather than wait. So the idea is he wanted to front load it. So we can still in the fall,
Right.
you know, take, once free cash is certified again, we should be in a similar situation so that we can bring it up to 75K, you know, usually around Thanksgiving time.
Right.
Of the fall.
I think this is also a topic we talked about within the capital process, the working group. It came up. And I honestly, Jack, I took David's recommendation was more of a look forward, a best practice. So I was actually surprised to see this number changed in the last budget number I saw. I said, when did that get bumped up? Because I said, I don't think we're gonna be able to swing that.
Yeah, we typically, what
But I
we're
think
doing,
incremental increases, as Jody, you said, is probably the way to start kind of building that up. So over a course of number of budgets will be,
typically we would always put it at 40K. That's what we'd done, but then things get tight and we would drop it down with the idea that usually because there's enough room in the budgets that early in the season, that if we need it, we can actually use the budget and then backfill it at the fall town meeting. So it's cash management.
Right. That's exactly right. Yep.
So we had taken the recommendation of the previous interim town administrator, and in the essence of, well, let's put in the asks and then figure out where things fall out. I am not upset with the with the cut. I understand why, and I totally agree with it, and I aligned with Jody on that. So I think in the fall we address it with free cash once that's been certified and go from there.
All right, so the next one that we're going to talk about is budget line item 161, which is the town clerk budget. There was a request for a 5% increase to salaries and wages. I took that entire amount out just on the basis of, let's consider this as part of the broader salary negotiations, cost of living adjustments for both union and non-union personnel. And once that determination is made, these salary line items can be adjusted along with everyone else, and the bucket of money would come out of reserve for negotiations and then redistributed to line items. So it's more of it's not a cut, it's not a no, it's just a let's postpone until decisions are made across the board, and then we can factor that.
I just want to put a little question mark next to that one. I think doing nothing might not be the right message, to be honest.
Right, but this was the ask.
Yeah, and I will say, I'll be honest, and say, I'm always honest and say, I don't know why I say that, but, I did speak with the town clerk.
Okay.
I did speak with everybody whose budget was impacted in one way or another, because I just think that that's the right thing to do. We're a team, we communicate, we collaborate. And it's not personal. It's just, this is, if I'm looking at numbers and the approach, this is what we're gonna do. And she totally understood. I talked to her earlier today. And we talked about other parts of her budget that I wanted to understand better. And so this is still an iterative process. But for, the sake of you guys knowing that the team has been part of this, very much a part of this process, and I'm comfortable saying that.
I spoke to her too, actually, after she came to the board, and again, the same thing, when we get free cash certified in the fall, there's nothing that says we can't supplement that. But right now, it's just setting the budget, we're trying to balance it.
Okay. The next item, and this one I have not been able to talk to Isabella or Carl yet, connect with them on. But I strictly from a numbers standpoint, 60,360 is what was removed from this. And let me go back to the ask. So basically FY24, we were looking at a part-time agent position funded at 10 hours. Okay, that represented $16,000. We had an agent come on board around November. And so because no budget had been expended, that amount of hours was increased. Then was increased pretty significantly compared to the 10. It was jumped up to about 30 hours. Obviously, there was a discussion back then that there was a need for that. And based on part-time, full-time status, as long as the average of hours worked for the entire fiscal year remained at or below 19 hours, we were able to consider that employee still part-time, even though they were working, the 30-hour status within a given week. That being said, what I have included in here is those 10 hours jumping up to 18 hours, or sorry, 19 hours, which would still represent a part-time position. So the net ask, the net increase to this budget is still $10,800 over FY24. Okay, so I just want to call that out. So even though Isabella, and I hate to call people by names, but the agent positions, I like to talk about these things in positions, right? Not about the actual individual, but this position jumping up to the 19 hours is still an increase by 9 hours over the previous fiscal year. So that net change is reflected in the budget. So we go from 16,000 last year to 26,800 this year. It's a $10,000 increase. That being said, if we were to increase this position beyond that, we're jumping into both a benefited position as well as additional salary for the upcoming fiscal year. The decision, so right now I've put this in as a sort of an increase at the part-time status. So anything above and beyond here would be an increase to a full-time status with benefits. So my recommendation on this front is to keep the position, increase the position to 19 hours. We have an option to include considering another part-time staff member. We can accelerate organizational restructuring within inspectional services to incorporate this. Consider an IMA with other towns potentially, or to identify other guaranteed funding sources to both support salary and benefits for this position. I know that there's been some discussion around the use of wetland revolving accounts, different grants, maybe sustainability planner, and things like that. But until we have some guaranteed funding sources for this position, my recommendation is to pursue any one of these other options as well.
So when I look at the ask last month, and it had an additional 87,160, and then,
Correct.
and you reduced that 87 by this 60,000, so about 17K.
Yes. So, yep. So
That's the
the
difference in the extra hours.
the extra hours plus a $31,000 benefit package. So that the ask of 87,000 was both the full-time number. So what it would cost that at the given rate at a full-time status plus benefits would be 87,160.
What is the benefit, the 31,000 benefit package consist of?
Sure.
Is that for single? Do you have, or do you do it for a?
So no, yeah. So what we do is what I've done is that was the analysis. I sent the board a few maybe 4 to 6 weeks back, but it we don't take the highest, we don't take the lowest. We look at a single plan, we look at an HMO option for a single plan, we look at an HMO option for a family, we look at a PPO option, and so we basically look at any one of the potential plans that people could take. We don't take the high, we don't take the low. We kind of look at participation rates. And then I also looked at, sort of what percentage of people take what option, right? And then I looked at what the rates for those options are and sort of did a weighted average of what that number was, and then took a number between there and said, okay, so on average, this is the plan premium plus a deductible. And that's what, this is what it costs to take on an employee, approximately $31,000. Now we might make out in the deal, and someone might not take benefits. We might pay more than that. We might pay less than that. It's really difficult to predict, but from a conservative, well thought out perspective, $31,000 is the number, and I'm happy to share the details of how that came to be.
So that's how you came to fully loaded, right?
What's that?
Fully loaded.
Fully loaded.
FTE.
Yep, exactly.
When we talk about funding sources, and we had discussed with them increasing their fees to be consistent with the surrounding communities. If we do that, does that money that's collected for those fees, because it's a revolving account, do they have active access to it immediately? Or does it have to go into the general fund and get certified for the following year?
In the revolving fund, the monies would go in right away. But
And they have access to that, right? Because
Mhm.
it's for conservation.
Yes,
So
yeah, it's right. And like, the revolving fund is unique to that department, right? So
Right.
the only thing that I don't know is what percentage of some of their protection money, wetland protection money. Usually there's a percentage that you can spend on administration. Same thing with grants. If there are grants, there's usually a threshold, 2%, 4%, depending on what you can actually spend on administration. So there's an avenue there to potentially support it. My concern is that these are all good avenues, but until something is like, this is what we can guarantee
Right.
year over year,
you can't spend it. till
then,
then.
we can't budget banking on it.
But something else might need to give if we think this position's important.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about removing the supplies budget from zoning.
That's a big one, guys. So, here's the thing. Where's the next one? Okay, so that was that. Yes, so you know what it was? So zoning, $400 is $400 at the end of the day, in an effort to look across budgets and consolidate things and not look at line items that haven't been expended in years. Let's just take it off the books and start cleaning things up. That's really what the nature of that one was. Okay, so the next one is a $45,000 reduction in a capital improvement line item. So this was a a build out and then a takeaway, right? So this is a couple of things. One, going back to the presentation I shared in December, just about capital planning in general, understanding that the capital improvements are both, built into the budget and outside of the budget, leveraging capital expenditure and or stabilization monies. This approach is our effort to be able to be mindful of the things that we need to maintain, that aren't things that we necessarily have to look at a capital expenditure to improve upon, but rather what are things that we have on our list of things to be good stewards of what we have, right? So Mike and I had talked about this earlier, and you had a great example, Mike, about the car. Can you share it? Do you mind?
I don't remember what the car
About the
was.
bumper versus oil
Oh,
change.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so
it was
right,
just a good,
you're always gonna pay to change the oil in the car. Well, maybe you're not and you're not, right? You're always gonna make sure you pay to get the oil change in your car, but you don't necessarily need to change out your rusty bumper, right? That's a nice to have. You gotta keep the oil change in order to make sure you can drive to work. So
right. So I've been asked a lot, well, what's the difference between building maintenance and capital maintenance? So the building maintenance is changing your oil, fixing the elevator, making sure the doors work, the light bulbs are changed, the septic's pumped, et cetera, right? The capital improvement stuff is, hey, you know what? That the sidewalk is like, it's okay. I mean, it's not awesome. We don't need to necessarily go for a, $30,000 whatever to fix it. But you know what? There's lots of cracks in it. Visually, it's not appealing. Let's start to take care of what we have before it deteriorates more, right? So it's fixing the rusty bumper before it actually falls off the car, right? And then we have to have a capital request. So my idea and logic in this was, again, seeding this account, not necessarily, I said $50,000, but the idea would be seeding this account incrementally over time to then have a working budget number that falls outside the scope of actual maintenance, but rather what can we do to just be good stewards of our properties and the things that we have, outside of looking always for capital requests. So my recommendation was to cut it by 45, and seed it, with $5,000 for the next fiscal year.
So this is coming out of police building maintenance?
Public building maintenance,
And what is that number right now?
50,000.
So you want to.
So it's a brand new line item.
Understand,
Yep.
okay, so it's a
Yep.
new line. Where was the money coming from before?
It wasn't coming from anywhere because
Net
it's a
new.
brand new line item. So this year, again, with just different thinking, different planning efforts, this was part of the capital plan on the budget side of things that we can do to start, incrementally making enhancements to the things that we have ownership of and oversight. And so it was $50,000 was a recommendation. But again, the approach is going to be more, let's look to, incrementally start to fund this over the next, several fiscal years until you get to a target.
Well, I guess all I'm getting at is that in previous years, when something needed to be repaired, we would find the money within the budget to fix it. And you're saying that you're actually put this new money for what we were spending before?
Well, I think what we were spending before was probably variable and not forecasted, and we, quote, as you said, we found the money.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily intended for that use. I think what
Yeah.
I'm hearing is a more precise truth in budgeting is what I would call it, in terms of we know we need to spend it. Let's get that line item in there. A line item, this could also be, funded through 1 year, maybe a
Yeah.
capital override.
I guess my only question, and you answered it, was this was something new that was being plowed into the budget. So it's not like we're taking away something.
No, we're not taking anything away. No,
That's what I mean. That's all.
it's just the follow-up steps is what I would say.
Yeah.
The follow-up steps to the capital planning efforts that the team has made over the last 4 months. And this is it in action. It would be starting to fund it. And it really takes that, the reactive nature around, oh gosh, what do we have to do? Because it just happened in front of us and we have to make a decision around it. It's more forecasting, well, what can we do? Because we have XYZ. It's not necessarily a capital request in that sense, but it's still part of the capital improvement plan on how we can, be good stewards of what we have. So maybe it's just as simple as, okay, I'm totally making this up off the cuff, but let's say that the paint on the door for all the exterior doors of a building are just, paint is just peeling. We don't have a special project to get it done. It's not a capital expense. It's over $25,000. It's not part of our general maintenance budget because we don't, budget necessarily to fix that stuff. But you know what? Let's keep it visually appealing and look like we take care of our stuff. Like that's essentially how I can explain that.
I was going down a different path based on where you were going, Mike, and that was we should look at free cash this year. I want to understand what are all the sources of free cash at the end of this fiscal year. And we should look at past years because we've always been able to quote, find the money. So in terms from a truth and budgeting standpoint, do we need to right size certain line items or consolidate them so that we don't have to create new funding, a new funding
Yes.
source, right?
That's what I'm, that's.
So that's an
and
add.
That's why I
What's
asked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm
Free
with
cash.
you, Mike. Like the other lens that I've been leveraging going through all of this is simplification, right? So last year, there was a huge effort on the chart of accounts, and I think we got, and I said this in a previous meeting, I think we probably got 85% of the way there. I think there's some fine tuning as we continue on to make sure that, the account line items are working for us the way that we want them to, both with a simplicity standpoint, a transparency standpoint, people understand. I'll give you a great example with the elections budget. I had a great talk with the town clerk today, just around, if I'm looking at salaries and wages and for elections and it's $800, I'm saying, okay, but that doesn't really make sense to me if we're talking about poll workers and it's got to be more than $800. And she explained to me, oh no, that's stipends. That's for the registrar. And I'm like, okay, then why don't we call it stipends? Salaries and wages happen to be under contract services. So again, sometimes it's just the naming conventions and then just consistency around every different department. Let's call things the same thing. Let's, have the same mechanisms for what we do. And so again, to your points, we want to be simple, but we also want to make sure that we're using what we have. As far as line items go and not just create things to create things. This one was only created in support of the previously discussed capital plan. Okay. The next one is police police overtime salaries and wages. The request for this increase was in the amount of $6,000. I did remove that request because the justification for the overtime was to support community-based events like Rock the Block and other things that where there needed to be a police presence in the community. My recommendation back to the chief was to ask for the overtime at the time of the event and potentially leverage another funding source such as community celebrations to be able to support that endeavor. The next one, we are looking at fire. For the next couple, we are looking at an FTE ad. It was an ask of a fire prevention personnel. And so I removed that from the operating budget just due to budget constraints. And I also level funded meetings and dues.
Question, I understand the remove the FTE, I'm all for that, but given the discussion last week, do we need to think about, maybe it's not this fiscal year, but we talked about if we go for the grant, the SAFER grant, we had a long discussion last week about if we bring on 4 additional firefighters, do we need to, over the period of 3 years, be ready to support them, right? So I understand removing this one, because we may not need it now, but would this not, we're suggesting this coming fiscal year, we don't want to think about incremental build to meet that need. If we'll start in FY26, is that what we're thinking?
Was this?
No, I mean,
Was this fire prevention FTE one of those 4? Or is
No.
this-
No, but he was going for one based on the fact that he's looking to build the force up to where it needs to be. The grant came in and gives us a different opportunity to start building that up. I guess,
Right.
So in other words, this FTE could be one of those 4.
Right. So I have no problem with removing it. I'm just trying to,
But if we fund 4 of them through the grant, if we don't come up with if we don't find
3
that
years.
funding in the next, was it 4 years?
I think it's
3 years.
So in the 4th year, we need to find basically $500,000.
Yeah,
Yep.
or some number less. I mean,
Well, if you've got 4,
you keep 2.
right.
But it seems almost like putting the cart before the horse. So first we have to decide how many. And then I would think the grant would just be icing on the cake if we were to get it. That's the way I looked at it. In other words,
No, the grant, so we apply for the grant, the grant's gonna be input.
Thinking about timing on my.
Yeah,
no, but I'm just saying that why, we shouldn't be, we shouldn't be counting on the grant, is what I'm saying, correct?
Well, typically, frankly, the reason those grants are put in place is because municipalities don't have a way to increase it like that. So the grant is a way to get it started. And then hopefully through growth, you find a way to fund it. Otherwise, if you don't, after the time, and of course, what has happened with a lot of those grants is they're funded. And then when it gets 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, the same people that found that grant find a way to continue funding it. And that's frankly where politics comes in, and we need to our state reps and our federal talks about the whole issue with earmarks that we've been really putting a big push on.
I don't foresee any ability for this town to be able to support 4 additional firefighters by the time the SAFER grant runs up
I would agree.
in any way, shape or form. Therefore, we're putting ourselves at massive amounts of risk of having to support that and either hiring 4 full-time firefighters that we end up having to cut in 3 years.
Right.
I will say that was my previous opinion. I spoke with a firefighter in town, and he said that a lot of these types of SAFER grants, you will get newer firefighters who are trying to, build experience, and it's a good way for them to do that. And if we want to have a revolving door of, newer firefighters coming in, I don't know the pluses and minuses of that. But in my opinion, the SAFER grant is, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Well, again, like I said, typically what happens, you get it and then they give you another one. But the point is, right now, we've got to balance the budget, and that's basically 20%.
Yeah.
So of the deficit.
Okay. Any further discussion on that one?
We were asking for 1, is that right? With this,
Right.
No, the ask was for 1, and that has been removed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next 2 line items, I'll bring your attention to what this is. So the first one is sorry, it's late, I'm tired, I'm sorry. So the ambulance lease purchase that was approved, don't laugh at last year's town meeting for a lease in the amount of $65,500 to support purchasing a second ambulance for the town. That was built into the budget. That was the number that I was given. Essentially what I did was to look at the lease agreement, talk to the fire chief and say, okay, what does this arrangement look like? And so in pursuing that, the lease payment would be the 65.5, which is what we budgeted for, but then having insight into other funds such as ARPA, looking at interest rate environments, and really trying to get a current quote. I did some digging and found out that lease is not locked and loaded until we secure the vehicle. We're not securing the vehicle until October of this year. That being said, whatever quote this number is based on is a moot point. Interest rate environments in this space are continuing to jump. So this quote was based on a rate of around 5.78%. And that was for the 65.5 payment. Rates have since jumped to 6.29% as recent as last week. So what I asked our partners to do is to get me to a payment on or around $42,000, because I wanted to see what does that look like and what down payment would I need to put to get myself level funded in this line. So last year, the money in this budget was $42,300 to support a lease purchase. So in doing so, he gave me a new quote at a rate of 6.29%, which again is a current environment. But if I put down a $2,000 $200,000 payment, which we do have room for in the ARPA funds, we can lessen that payment to be in line with what was already budgeted and therefore have a net no effect, so to speak, and an increase. So therefore, lessening that amount, that payment amount that we anticipated by $22,500. So again, as a summary, to purchase this vehicle, which is about $386,000, if we put a down payment on it and then have a 5-year lease at a rate of 6.29%, we can keep our payment in line with what was funded in the previous year and therefore not have an increase in this line item.
And the
and
total
keep it
expense
flat.
to the town for the entire vehicle would have
Yes.
been less too, right?
Yes, the interest paid over the life of the loan would be lessened as well. I thought it was about $50,000, but it's more about $30,000 taking this approach.
So we're putting a $200,000 down payment to reduce. What was the, I guess I'm still trying to figure out what was the financing plan last year? And where'd the money go? I mean, I know we haven't taken, but I mean.
Well, maybe rephrase. What do you mean?
No, I want to know.
And it's going up to 65.5, and that's the difference.
Well, what I'm saying is in that line item, that was for a different, had to be a different lease. The lease that we're talking about this year is 65.5. And that was for, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but it was either a 5 or 7 year lease.
Did we put
Says
a
new
down
lease
payment
payment.
down?
Says new lease payment for second ambulance approved at the Springtown meeting.
Yep.
So we approved, in my understanding is we approved something last year. We haven't taken the ambulance yet, so
Yep.
therefore the lease is really it's up in smoke. We have to do a new release on current terms.
Yep.
Right. So last year, did we have to put a down payment down to get the 65.5?
No.
No, we didn't take it yet.
Right.
No.
Okay, but we had no plan to put it down, 200,000 down.
Correct. Correct. What I'm saying is I looked at the lease and said, okay, what are the terms of the lease? Can we do better? And can we do something in a fashion that would not cause us to have to increase that line item at all?
Well, we're doing better, but we're also expending
but wasn't-
$200,000 in a block sum that kind of like.
Wasn't 42.3 the lease for the previous one?
Yes, probably
Yeah.
Right.
So
So you're
you're
trying to-
between, so it was going from 42.3
to
up to
65.5.
65.5 for
Right.
the new.
Correct.
For the new ambulance.
And to bring it back down.
To bring it back down to level
200,000.
fund it, you've got to front load it by 200K.
Right.
I understand that. I'm
Right.
just not sure. I'm sort of like, is that the right use of those funds when there are other needs?
Yeah. And again, this is just, she's walking through her.
No, I know.
Yep.
Right.
I got to
And
circle around.
I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah, and we can look at it, when we talk about the ARPA funds, and the only reason that I moved in that direction was one, not paying interest if you don't have to, right? And then level funding the budget, so we don't have an operational increase in that area. And the other reason is there was space within the ARPA footprint for this allocation, so I took it.
Mhm.
Okay. The next one is capital equipment, similar but different. So capital equipment, 75.5 has kind of ridden in this line item for the last couple of fiscal years. And drilling down a little bit more on the details, I noticed that the amortization schedule was actually only requiring a payment of 66,860 or something for this year. So I just right-sized that line item to be truly in line with the amortization schedule.
I have one more question on the ambulance. We're not contractually obligated to take the second ambulance at this time, are we? If we don't have a signed lease, then we don't have a commitment to purchase or lease. Or
I
if we
don't
did, then it
think,
should be on the previous terms, right?
I don't, let me back up.
I think this is the replacement, and the idea is we're going to keep the other one.
I know, but we don't even have the staff to run two at the same time, right? This is a backup, as far as my understanding. That's why he wants additional staff. Right?
I don't think that's the
No,
case.
no, he's got,
This-
because of his call staff now, getting people from other, he's got.
Mm.
Well, you know what,
We should look into
let's
it.
keep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can
All
look-
of this.
yeah.
We've got a month.
Yep,
So
so we
all
can
of it,
circle
I mean,
back.
All month. Well,
That's actually a lot of time,
It is.
relatively speaking.
Yeah. Email's quick.
but I just to circle back before you keep, this 85.50, that's
Yep.
the difference between what's here and what we're contractually obligated to do.
Yes.
Yep.
So again, this is just prudent due diligence about looking at actual schedules and amortization charts to make sure that we're, you know, paying what we need to be paying and we have enough budgeted. So that's just the drill down on that.
I will say that all of this great due diligence, we found the money before. We are so tactical now, I think, with all of these line items that finding the money later is going to be much harder. So this is why we need to be more planful moving
You're
forward.
welcome and sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. I would much rather this approach.
If you
but
right
yeah.
size it, you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So it just
It's just
requires
taken
due
off a lot of-
diligence and planning.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of this comes from ABS and how we did it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the next things are within the inspector line items, and I'm just adjusting these to be in line with trended expenditures. And that's really it. So it's an adjustment of $2,700. Tree cutting, so the next one is in forestry. And what I'm doing here is level funding. Not level services. So level funding reduces us by 2860. And again, this is just within the tree cutting line item. The other things have been, have stayed in there. So it was just one increase request that was shaken out from a different line item. So the net change to this budget is 2860. And my only recommendation here is to consider a warrant article to include a supplemental amount if we want to keep at level service, or if there's a special tree cutting project that is known that we need additional funding for.
It's another thing in the fall. Interesting.
I think just to that point, there's a few line items I would love, like roads is another one where it's project-based work can be one-time funded. You know what I mean? Supplementally funded more easily than trying to say, I need a huge chunk at this time of year. So
Right.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think forestry, roads and other things might start popping up saying, hey, why don't we start tracking those individually? And that way, say, the Local Empowerment Act passes and you can do a one-time 2.5 override for non-capital projects.
Right. A 1 year.
To tell the taxpayers,
1
hey,
year.
we want to do this one time to seed this account to fix your roads.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot. That's a much easier sell.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think this makes a lot of sense, the way, you know, take the forestry example and we could use it in a number of different places.
Yes. The next one is in highway. So this is not actually a reduction. This is simply a relocation. So the idea of buying equipment, I would like to take out of this particular line item. So this request was for an iPad. And I will review this request as part of the larger tech budget for new equipment and sort of start to make, you know, to streamline those types of asks so that we can track them a little bit more easily within our larger technology budget, as opposed to this type of equipment out of each person's line item. Okay, so the next one we are talking about is Council on Aging. I know we did talk about this quite a bit last week. The recommendation here is to continue to keep this position part-time, just due to the cost of benefits. Look to possibly increase. I know it's so minor, but having this individual work up to the 19 hours. I know that they're 18 right now, so an hour doesn't seem, you know, like much at all. But the other thing that I would recommend is maybe some creative staffing where we just get to that, you know, 19-hour a week average, as opposed to, you know, a set number of 19 hours. Maybe there's an opportunity, making this up, but in the fall it gets a lot busier, right? And so maybe this individual can work 30 hours, you know, for the course of 6 to 8 weeks, but maybe take some more time off in the summer or work reduced hours in the summer. Maybe you know, consider working a day, but look to creatively staff that. The other thing again is to look at, you know, potentially bringing on another part-time individual, which we talked about again last week. There's a couple of different avenues, but for now, I kept this position at a part-time status. And that's it.
So right now, it is a part-time, and this 28,440 was gonna bring them to full-time.
That 28,440 was actually going to bring them to full-time. It was an increase of both benefits and another 9 hours. The ask was 14, but 5 was going to be paid out of the other. Yes, thank you.
Did you work through what it would be to have, say, another part-time position? Like,
I did not.
okay.
Nope, I did not. I think that, from here, yeah, it's a great
pass.
Yeah, no, it's a great
See
thing
if we
because
can
I
claw
think what
back.
we can do is, once we, you guys have a chance to look at this, to kind of consume the recommendations, if you say, Jody, go back and sharpen your pencil and see what you can do about XYZ, like, sure, let's look at that and we'll build that into a round 2. Understanding that this is, the footprint we have to work within.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the next one, we're looking at library. Again, there was an ask here for additional library hours, which would increase that line item by, hang on 1 second. So there were actually 2 things that were happening here. So 34,109 doesn't represent, total reductions in anything. What it was is the initial amount that was asked for was actually inflated a little bit. Not necessarily representing what the library director was asking for. So we worked together to get that true number. That true number for staffing was 165,100. So that number was put in, and then the additional ask of $32,000 or so was to fund the library assistance. So it spanned over about 6 or 7 folks. So I kind of took an average of those salaries because I couldn't predict who would be working that amount of hours. But that would be to keep the library open for the extended hours as discussed last week. The other reductions in this area were to keep programs level funded. And that was it.
But we did assume the additional costs that we split with them last year in this budget.
Yes, so yes, thank you. So the additional costs, the 11 hours of state aid the 11 hours of the children's librarian that brought that individual to full-time, that was rolled back into the operating budget. Thanks for pointing that out.
And
So this is telling me current year is 164,270, then it went up to 197,109 for 32,839 increase, and that was for 9 additional library assistant hours, 11 additional children's library hours, and those were paid for in the current year by a library state aid. Full-time benefits for the children's librarian, library director, contractual increase, and longevity, 3 staff included. That's for 32,839.
Yes, so there was some massaging we needed to do with some of that to make it accurate. So the 197,109, there were some assumptions that weren't totally correct in that. And so I worked through that. We worked together through that. So really, the net ask was, again, the $32,009, which would represent the increase to just those 11 hours. That was really the net ask, was 11 additional library assistant hours
Twice.
for hours of operation. What's that?
The benefits on that note went in twice, I think. So we took that out last week. We realized 2 people kind of.
Yeah, there was confusion and discussion.
Confusion.
Yeah, there was clearly confusion in what the number actually was. So.
Yep. And I made it a point to not touch anything on the department requested numbers because I didn't want to, start modifying somebody else's inputs. And so I kind of have my own kind of separate input based on what they did. So if it was a number that wasn't totally represented and vetted, to begin with, it wasn't the right number. It made it a little skewed as to what the variance would be with the right number. So the idea is we just didn't, I did not move forward the additional 11 open library hours, keeping the library open.
I guess sort of similar question to with Council on Aging. I guess they had requested additional hours for part-time staff. And it seems like we're not going to be
Yep.
able to fund all of them,
Mhm.
but I guess, I guess that question of like, can any of them be clawed back? I guess.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, again, there's some opportunity. So if there's a desire of the board to say, you know what, they asked for 11 hours, they've asked for hours, for the past, 3-5 fiscal years. Maybe we can't do 11 hours across the town. I mean, across the department, but maybe we can, do 4. And that cost is X, right? Like we can talk about that.
To that point, I'd like to see, I mean, basically, we've got for every department that had additional hours looked for, I think we should look at that as a thing.
Oh,
Like, where can
right,
we increase at all?
Yep.
I mean,
Right.
I think the conservation agent, that was a very compelling update I saw from their budget in terms of things that are not getting done.
Right.
That probably should be getting done. And then we started hearing about permits and fees. I said, and then additional hours, can we sprinkle some? But I think
Right.
the FTE piece of this budget that's getting cut, I wouldn't mind looking at it collectively to say,
Mhm.
what can we do, especially given the potential of talking about organizational design in the very near future.
Mhm.
So we got the proposal back. You'll probably have it in your inbox and hopefully we'll have it on the agenda next week.
Yeah, I already sent a message to add it for next week, so.
Yeah. I
but
think there's
I-
definitely opportunities there.
I just want to make sure I understand that this, in this proposal, this reduction by $34,109, this eliminates all of these additional requests or not?
It only so the net of it represents 3 core things. Number 1, not moving forward with 11 additional hours for the library to remain open. Number 2, $1,100 in performer rate increases. So that was just level funded. And then the third one was the state mandated increase as a representation of 19% of the budget. This number, and Andrew and I are going to work on this a little bit more, but essentially that's level funded from last year. So the net of it is the 34,109 that is removed from what was requested.
Yeah, I mean, you're technically not increasing the budget in a way that the state mandated increase has to.
No, and in
right?
fact that, Andrew and I talked about this a bit today, and he's going to share some additional information with me tomorrow, or probably Friday. But 19% of the overall budget has to be in circulation materials. And if I look back a couple of fiscal years and sort of scrubbing things as I do, that number should have been like $46,000 in FY24, but we were sitting at 68,100. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're way over the mandate. But it's not as simple as making a reduction to right size it,
Once it's
because
there, right.
once it's there, you run into situations where you can't proportionately reduce a budget or unproportionately reduce a budget as it relates to the rest of the town budget. So we need to be a little bit more targeted, number 1, to be right sized, but then also to add in a little bit of a hedge bet around, okay, well, what if something happens with the budget where we need to do something mid-cycle that then throws that percentage out of compliance, right? So I built that in initially, and then I said, okay, so we can actually reduce this line item. And then Andrew and I talked again, and it was like, oh, wait, I can't reduce this line item, but let's look at it a little closer to see if there's something that we can do, because maybe there's an opportunity to take what's already built in there and flip it up top with additional hours, right, for staff potentially. There's a bunch of things we can still look at, but that's why I didn't reduce that. And for anybody that might say, okay, but Jody, that 69,100 is not 19% of the budget, minus that line item. It's only XYZ. Why is that? I know that, I recognize that, but that's why it has not changed. Not that any one of you would have drilled down to that level of detail. But if you had, that's the answer and why that sort of stayed level funded.
You could do incremental reductions and not, you know what I mean? Because there
Exactly.
are other places
Yep.
that are getting reduced.
Exactly.
Potentially,
Yep.
or you leave it alone and then you're never at risk of that automatic kick in.
Right. So if we were in a real dire situation, I would look to maybe incrementally decrease it. But again, I think that it'll right size itself over the next couple of fiscal years. And we just need to know that, this is still well within the 19% based on the current environment. We've got a lot of cushion. We're just going to kind of reduce that cushion over time. So there's multiple approaches. Right now I level funded because quite frankly, I ran out of time to talk about it. So. Okay, so last one is a reduction in our Worcester Regional Retirement Annual Appropriation. How, you might ask? Well, if we pay our bill in full on time, as we do every year, by July 1st, we save $19,700. So as your treasurer, I will make sure that that happens.
Says 771.
I'm sorry about
By
that.
that day.
7/1/24. Such a stickler for typos too. Thank you. I will make that update. So the net of all of this is the following. If you kind of jump down to where I talk about the beginning deficit, bringing us back to the top of our conversation here, we started around $520,266. We made right now, this is showing 418,868. So look at, I end my presentation with 2 mistakes, go figure. But we reduced the budget by $405,378. We made revenue adjustments in the right amount to zero that out. So essentially, we do not have a surplus
Is
or
that
deficit.
revenue adjustment, all motor vehicle excise?
Yes,
That seems a
So
big adjustment.
well, you didn't
it's
have,
not.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's right sized. Basically, the way that we made that adjustment is when we started our revenue projections for motor vehicle, we used the same estimate as last year. This number is still under the actual from last year. So, sorry, not under the actual, it's over the actual by about $70,000. But it's well within what we've committed already and what we know our commitments are. One of the benefits of motor vehicle is that we already kind of know what our revenues are at the beginning of the year because it's the biggest commitment, and we can sort of look at that. The other thing we looked at is the cost, the manufacturing, retail prices of vehicles are not going down. And based on the fact that there's, excise is calculated on MSRP in addition to a couple of other factors, we're very confident in that increase. Though it might seem large, it's really not in the big scheme of what we originally forecasted in that area for revenue versus what we're using to adjust the budget.
so all of the other revenue projections from the assessors, that's all, we haven't reduced those numbers.
Oh, no. So thank you for pointing that out. So the only area of revenues, if you remember, there are 3 main drivers to revenues. First and foremost is the levy, which is made up of Prop 2.5 and new growth. None of that is touched. The second area is local receipts, of which motor vehicle is one of those items. And the last area is state aid. Since the last presentation, state aid was adjusted, and it was adjusted to the actual, the latest budget, which happens to be just the preliminary cherry sheet forecast for FY25. Prior to this meeting, I had used the FY24 actuals, just knowing that the climate, of that budget changes. It's going to change 2 more times potentially. So it's just a very conservative approach at the early stages of revenue forecasting. So I was confident to move to the forecasted FY25 number. And that adjusted us by about $24,000. So not super large, but still a move in the positive for us, which again helped us to balance the budget. But again, that number was factored into the reduction of the beginning deficit number. Just so we know, the adjustment to receipts is what was the last lever to kind of balance the budget.
Is there any word from DOR what they expect the final budget from the State House to be?
No, unfortunately not. I spoke to the DLS last week, and we're still waiting on the House budget. So and I don't know when that is anticipated to even be released. I would think by mid-April, but I don't know,
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
right?
Well, actually, you might, because this is an election year, so you might be right. Yeah. No.
So,
Right.
that is a balanced budget for FY '25. Like I said, a couple of next steps, you guys can think about what we've shared tonight, reach out to me. We can put it on the agenda for next week as per usual. Talk about anything that you might like to explore a little bit more if you have questions on. We also would need to look at some of the recommendations to formalize the warrant articles. So again, a couple of things that we had mentioned that you may or may not want to do for this upcoming town meeting. I know a couple of things are already on the docket, so that's good. So just kind of a due diligent review to make sure there's nothing else. And then again, just continuing to fine tune some of the line item details with department heads. This has been shared, this summary with some of them. I've talked to probably most of them, except for conservation, which we didn't get a chance to sit down. But again, we'll make sure that everybody's clear. And if there's anything that they have additional inputs around based on my final recommendations, I can certainly circle back.
But unless the House budget is reduced, which I doubt that'll happen, that's actually going to give us more revenue potentially to put some of this back.
Can we talk about some things, if anybody has any, I mean, I've got a couple of things I don't want to lose sight of. In terms of,
Regarding the budget.
yeah, so I mean, rather than us going to Jody individually, do we want to have a quick discussion about areas of,
Well, I'm
Focus.
looking at the agenda and if it's quick, sure.
well, I mean, I would like a discussion on the budget. I mean, for me, it's the Concom position. I think I would like to try to sharpen the pencil on that.
Mhm.
The ambulance and the use of ARPA funds, I think we got to drill into that a little bit to understand what if any options we have. I think,
ARPA 9. We could do ARPA 9 and a couple of line items. Do ARPA.
yeah, no,
Okay, then we go
what I don't want Jody to walk away without, she's got some ideas of, well, at least what I'm thinking, and maybe other people, and then Elena, you talked about, can we see a view of all the part-time hours? What does that mean financially? And is there a way we could sharpen the pencil, see, can we accommodate any of it, more of an exercise?
Well, I think your concern, your concern and mine too is conservation.
Mhm.
Right, about how do we make that happen still?
And how do we make the ambulance lease work?
So I just,
Any other avenues?
Greg, if you and Jody can go back about this, we're talking about the ambulance conservation and
Any part?
Well, I mean, as far as like council on aging,
yeah,
it,
and library.
and library, I mean, they both are sort of beyond capacity in terms of their staffing. And so just, I know it's sort of, we've talked about like an incremental approach, which I think is helpful. And especially if the new senior center passes, to sort of work up towards that. So that's what I'm thinking about, is sort of fold those in. But I also fully agree about the conservation agent and getting more hours there, especially with the grant opportunities that we could get funding in, but right, as Jody points out, that funding is not
Secure.
we don't have it yet.
I don't think anybody disagrees of
Yeah.
the need. It's just, how do you pay for it?
Right. Well,
So
but do I understand right? I mean, we might know more about state aid in the next few weeks. So it might be nice to have sort of this lined up for when that comes in, like.
The point is, this is worst case right now, but well, the one thing I think you're right about the ambulance. I think we need to take a look at that and really, to drill down what that represents.
the second ambulance or the funding approach?
You know what? I don't know. That's what I'm.
I think the other thing too, in terms of incremental approach to financing, I know there's this, you don't use one-time monies for operational costs, which I agree with. But one way to incrementally fund and build a budget is to possibly plan on a multi-step approach, which you might use one-time funds to help partially fund something
To start it.
pick it up.
Yeah.
In the second half, similar to what we did with the library last year. So more, if we think some of this stuff is of serious value, then we might want to explore ways to get it done.
I think there's some, there's been a couple of other areas in the budget that I'm exploring as well. Again, I'll use the elections just because I spoke most recently with the town clerk, but in understanding the election cycles a bit better and understanding that, we can't staff to our peaks and we can't staff to our lows, right? With same thing goes with budgeting is, if there's every 2 years, there's a blip because we have additional elections, you know, our baseline budget should be the things that happen every single year, special town meeting, annual town meeting, town elections, right? But then there should be this, you know, this next level that is going to support maybe 50% of elections that come down the pike, right? That we are expecting. But to Mike's point, we've kind of had this discussion a little bit with other areas of the budget. If it is an election year, then potentially we use, annual town meetings, special town meetings to fund and supplement those budgets for those one-time expenditures in those given years in which they come up, right? Because that's every 2 years. So it's really just, to me, starting to fundamentally establish those rhythms and routines of what we know is coming and sort of the disciplines around, what do we do every year with free cash? And granted, there's been routines and rhythms, right? But maybe there's, just a little bit of a different approach in being able to supplement things without, fully loading it into the operating budget. And again, we have to be careful of that. It's a little bit of an art and a science because, the unexpended revenues is just one portion of our free cash calculation. So we don't want to get so tight that it kind of limits us, even within interdepartmental budget line transfers. But at the same time, we don't want to so grossly overestimate, the needs in the budget to sort of limit where else that money is needed in the budget. So it's a lot of moving parts, but I think we're slowly getting there, and making some recommendations on how to best move forward.
It's been a great discussion. Thank you. Yeah. And to Greg and Jude, do you both feel like you got an idea of sort of where we're thinking of trying to look a little harder?
Yeah, I mean, I from the discussion just now, I've highlighted, conservation. I've highlighted the lease option for the ambulance, and I've highlighted library. I think.
Council on Aging.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Council on Aging. Thank you.
I just also find out what, what the use of that tool, like what the historic use is here of that tool of just doing the one-time items and what that does, what the recommendation is long-term, does that burn towns out? The people get tired of it? Yeah, what type of effect does that have long-term on a community if you use that sort of tooling? That's not something I have knowledge of, so.
It's not good, and it put us in a structural deficit 15 years ago that we had to dig out of because there was.
When you're saying be careful, that's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to be clear on that.
No, this is a good, but this is a good waypoint.
Yep.
All right, anybody have questions about the budget? Jody, thank you very much. Thank you. Nope. Let's we have ARPA discussions. Mike, I'm gonna look to you about that. Is that what we're
I'm not sure why it's on the agenda.
I'm not either.
We had an ARPA discussion last week, which
okay,
was
so
good.
maybe so I'm gonna just,
Yeah, I think it stayed.
all right, then we can,
Of course, we're gonna have another ARPA discussion now.
but
Next week.
next,
Yeah.
okay, so we'll skip over 9, review ATM warrant. And the first thing, as I want to make mention is, we had originally, we voted to open the warrant. We had also, in that motion, had voted to close it certain date. We've made some changes. So the first thing is I need a motion to reopen the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Janelle, I.
Thank you, sir. So we have the draft in front of us, Article 10, which is the current state of the article. I'm assuming this got pulled, all the language has been straightened out the way that we wanted it to be. About the senior center and the other expenditures.
There's, and I know Karis is on, I think,
I don't think Karen, oh, she. Karis, are you here now? I don't think.
I am, I'm doing
Oh,
work
great.
in the
All right.
background.
I don't have to send you a text. Thank you.
Oh, I'm here.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think there might be one tweak based on Karis's response this afternoon.
Okay.
Where, on one of Ann's CP, the Article 31, there might be a couple.
Question,
edits to
well,
that.
does it change the intent of the article?
No,
No,
Well, then,
That was a question that Anne had last time.
Yeah.
That's the same one. Okay.
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
So that's something that we can still,
modify.
right.
Yep.
So by opening it and having what I'm looking, I guess I'm looking for is to, looking for motion to adopt the current draft as the actual warrant for the annual town meeting, which would be a total of 36 articles as written in the draft that's in front of all of you and actually has been posted.
So is this the order of articles that we expect to keep? Is that
Yeah.
part of?
This is what this is where we're at. I mean, we'll have to write motions to go to this and we'll have to
Right.
tweak the
Might be-
funding and.
Article 23 might get pushed out of the senior center down into the zoning section. I just saw that, but with all the senior center articles are together like we tried to do, all the CPCs together.
Okay.
Okay.
Laura added an article that I omitted, so that was good too, you know. But if 23 doesn't move as is, if you guys don't care.
Do we have one in here? Did we decide that, or did you decide last week about taking some free cash to put it into the current year's FinCom reserve?
Yeah, that's here.
That was in, 19.
Yep. 19 is,
Ferris, can I ask, and a certain John could ask you too, I guess. But am I right to say if we adopt this draft as it is, as long as we don't change the intent of the articles, we can still write the warrant with the motions, with the funding sources and everything the way that we want it. Is that correct?
oh, yeah, the articles shouldn't be the motions, so the motions are separate documents with all the funding sources, so, yeah, that's fine, you're just adopting the warrant articles.
Just that
As
since
presented.
the closing date, we have, added and taken away a couple of articles. So when I reopened it and now this draft, this is the state of what we're going to go to town meeting.
and just to, everything highlighted on this draft by Laura is extra information that would be removed from the posted copy.
Right.
Right.
And is that likely to, will some of that go in the motions or,
Yeah.
or in the
Yes, well,
discussion?
yeah.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just,
Sure.
I might have missed your conversation a bit earlier. 10 and 19, the same thing?
Say that again?
Is Article 10 and Article 19 the same thing?
They do look,
They are.
they do look very similar.
Exactly similar.
Can you scroll through those?
Yes, and.
Good
rented
catch.
Well,
also.
basically, number 10 says to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate available funds to FinCom reserves. And Article 19 says to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of money for available funds to FinCom reserves.
Then you don't need both of them.
Question.
This is what.
All right, so let's remove 19 and then move everything up once, right?
The one thing I'd say though, before you choose which article, I think is Article 9, where's the consent count? I thought consent was 5
Well,
through
well,
11.
that's why I'm removing 19 because 9 can be should be in the, I believe. Karis, we were talking about, and I was actually talking with the new interim town administrator about expanding the consent calendar from what we normally do to save some time. So it doesn't really matter where in the warrant the articles come as long as we declare the article numbers within the consent calendar. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Yeah, so it doesn't, so for that purpose, when we say consent calendar, we come up with numbers. What I've done is leave it up.
Right, I just But the FinCom reserves is not part of the consent calendar, right?
I don't know.
I would say.
I don't know. I would ask council if it can be or not.
Well, all of the consent articles have to be subject to a 2/3 vote because they're moved either up or out of order, and depending on what's in them. So I don't see why the FinCom reserves couldn't be in the consent calendar.
Okay.
Okay, well, the town clerk was trying to put all the consent articles together.
Yep.
But that was per her feedback, so.
Right. I know it makes it easier for her and the moderator if
Mhm.
they're actually grouped together up front so we can grab it as a whole group.
Right.
But you know, we're at a point now where I don't want to open and close it. We're gonna have to go to print very soon.
No, I know, I'm just saying,
In terms of the consent calendar, don't we have to give a recommendation to the town on that one specifically? And we don't typically on the consent
yeah,
calendar ones?
yeah, the only reason I asked the question is remove 10, not 19, leave 19 out.
Yeah.
That's-
No, I get where you're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, whether we declare the numbers, you know, wherever they sit. I think the most important piece of it is that we're gonna have 32 articles instead of 33.
Brendan
Sorry,
has his-
35 instead of 36.
Mr. Chair, Brendan has his hand raised.
Hi, Brendan.
Hello, I didn't want to interrupt. I just had a comment if we're done that discussion. About Articles 32 and 33 are still listed as placeholders. Is that the category we want to give them when we print them?
No. They're zoning articles.
Right. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yep.
In other words, they're not because they're okay, well, one of them is a zoning article. We agreed. He did not do a citizen's petition, but we agreed that to fix the
Right.
to fix the zoning map is in the interest of the town. So we're gonna do that. And then 33, yeah, the protection district. Again, that was based on, I think, DEP recommendations.
Is that planning board?
It's Jack.
Jack, yeah.
Right.
Jack.
Yeah.
The Jack had already.
So in 23 is the Armood from Taft property.
Which one?
23, that's under select board. Now I never heard back whether or not planning reconsidered that,
Well, yeah,
or are we actually taking that forward and they're.
we'll leave it, we'll pass over it. I think I don't know, but I think we're gonna leave it on here. We'll just pass over it at the meeting.
No, I'm just saying should it be select board or planning board and should we move it down to the other zoning articles? I can send Jack a note.
Well, I would say, but I'm certain that the planning board has asked to pass over it.
Because we asked him to reconsider and Jack took that back and then they said,
Oh, I don't know what the answer was. So I guess all I'm getting at, and Karis, you can straighten me out on this. Article 23, we have it as under the select board, but if the planning board wants, they can still make the motion and in other words, these labels next to each one of the articles that says, you know, the origin of who would make the motion. That's flexible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ultimately, we are still ultimately voting that these are going to be the articles, these labels underneath.
I understand that. I'm just wondering, should we clean it up? That's all.
Well, we don't have to, we can still, in other words, it's not changing the intent of the article. So we are.
No, but I'm good with all the articles. I'm just saying, what are the additional tweaks we should do and let Laura know in the coming days, because to clean it up.
I guess what I'm agreeing with you. About 23, I don't know.
Okay.
But we can do it offline.
Yeah, is this because when the Armoud got created, the map didn't get updated?
We're suggesting an additional site that to have that overlay.
Okay,
It was a site that got it was in the original proposal, but then it got removed, like,
Removed
the
on the
motion
floor.
was amended, at town meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
when it was done once
Right.
before. So the idea is we'd like to go back again. And
Yep.
suggest, and at one point, it almost passed, but it was at a special town meeting and that wanted to go to an annual town meeting. That was the rationale behind it. And then it was never brought back again.
Well, there was also the argument that it was property that was intended for municipal use, and now we have a potential municipal use for that property. So there has been a change to the property, or hopefully there is going to be a change to the property, which I guess we would have voted on before this article. I mean, that's the idea, that, right?
All right, so
Okay, it just needs to specify. You need to specify the property because you've got to have the parcel numbers in the, because you need to have the zoning map available at the town clerk's office or in the town. So you need to know specifically the parcels and they should be called out. Because it just says to add. It doesn't say where or what parcels. So you need to give
no, when it
notice of what
says X,
parcels.
X, 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 and we're actually talking about to designate the intent is the property that at the corner of North Ave and Route 16 that the senior center is going to be placed on, that parcel.
Is it the same parcel as the senior center proposal, that 3 North Avenue?
Yes,
Or is it, okay,
yes, there were 3 parcels, right? One of them, the one at the bottom across from the end zone, has been sold. It's going to be, we sold that. The one in the middle is conservation restriction on it that's going to stay the same. And the parcel we're talking about here is the parcel where the senior center is going to be located. And we asked to move it because potentially someday you might put a fire station on the other piece of it. But another option is we may subdivide it and sell that piece to turn it into a mixed use. And that's what we're looking at talking about with this, potentially with this warrant article. To council's concern, the overlay district involves that parcel where the senior center is going to be, is being proposed. And that should be enough. I don't have the book and page number here in front of me, but to say it's the parcel where the senior center is proposed to be put on, that's specific enough for our purposes tonight. Is that correct?
That's fine. Before you print the warrant, just
Oh,
make sure
sure.
you add the parcel number.
Absolutely.
That's all. And it should be by adding the parcel to the overlay district, not adding the overlay district to the parcel. The order's wrong right there when I look at it. Sorry, I should have caught this earlier.
All right. Well, that's why we're talking about it.
Yep.
All right. Are there any other changes that are to be proposed?
actually, I guess it's not about intent, but the Article 22, so about the proposed senior center.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I thought I'd seen a number for North Avenue,
Well, we'll figure.
but that will need to get finalized before.
Oh, and
it's
it said,
printed.
for instance, to be located on town-owned property at North Avenue. Yes.
Right, so
Yes.
before this is printed,
Yes,
that needs
that's
to
gonna
get
be fixed.
specified.
Right.
Yeah, that just needs to be in the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, it needs to be in the motion. It doesn't need to be in the article.
No, in
No.
other words, what's here is.
Okay.
And I drafted the motion with the number that was given to me, so I think Mike has it.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so I guess I would be looking for a motion to approve this draft as the proposed set of warrant articles to be voted on at the annual town meeting on May 3rd. So moved. All right.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
July.
Now I need a motion to close the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Right, all those in favor?
July.
Okay. Okay. You close your.
Yeah, get motion to close FinCom meeting.
I'll make a motion to close.
All those in favor?
Jack, you can stick
Aye.
around. I just figured we
Aye.
do what we're thinking about it.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, ballot question language. Is it's appendix A. Levy limit overlay. Override, underride, capital expenditure exclusion or debt exclusion. Paris, can you,
I provided specific language earlier today. It was language that Mike had already had.
Did you send that to Laura by any chance? Cause I don't have a copy, but
I didn't
Hang
see
on.
it either.
Just give me a minute. I did send it to Laura when I sent,
well, she wasn't, I
Well-
don't think she
Nope,
was,
she's not here.
yeah, she was not, she was at a class today, so she probably didn't. But let me,
Okay. well, I can read you the language if you
all right,
like.
I'm looking for. So in other words, this appendix A should prop 2.5 questions. Now I'm looking at this, that you sent an email today. I'm going to read this. It says, shall the town of Mendon be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond in order to fund, design, and construct the Mendon Community and Senior Center? Yes or
Although
no?
it's senior and community center, but yes, I
Mendon
got
Senior and Community Center.
that's what you're calling it. Yes, that's the language that is
Okay.
required by DLR for these ballot questions.
All right,
Great.
but we don't need, do we need to make a motion to approve this language for the ballot question at this point?
I think Ellen needs to have the language finalized so she can get the ballots printed.
I guess
Whatever.
my question is, I have no problem asking for a motion for this. I just don't want to,
Yeah.
if we don't have to vote on it, then we can make sure it's right when she gets it. But you're saying the way this is, so if I'm going to just read it again, the motion I'm looking for is for the select board to approve the following language, which is, shall the town of Mendon be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Prop 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond in order to fund, design, and construct the Mendon Senior and Community Center? With a yes or no vote on the ballot to the voters. Is that correct?
Correct. And the select board, yes, does have to approve that before it can be put on the ballot.
So I'm looking for a motion of what I just read.
and that just ends at community center. We don't need to put location on the ballot, correct?
Nope.
Okay.
You
And
can
what
if you
about
want.
the amounts? The amounts will already be approved at town meeting, right?
Correct.
So then this vote here is just to approve what's already been recommended and approved at town meeting.
That's right.
Okay. And we don't need to put the amounts
In the ballot.
no,
Ballot?
on the ballot?
It's in the motion, right?
Yeah, it's in the motion is because it could, right, because it's already been printed. The ballot's already been printed when we vote at the,
Right.
all right, so I'm looking for somebody to,
I move to approve the ballot language as spoken by the chair.
Second.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
No,
Aye.
aye.
All right,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
is there a date for the election? Special election yet? Has that been
it would
contemplated?
be, well, we're gonna put it on the regular ballot for the regular town election, so it's just gonna be an additional ballot question on the ballot for the vote, which is 10 days after the town meeting. So the town meeting is May 3rd, so it would be May 14th.
Okay, I just wanted, because I think there's some notification requirements so the town clerk could counsel, maybe clarify that.
Well, we know what
We know what
Laura
it
knows
is.
what that deadline is.
That's
Yes,
fine.
that's why we're doing this now.
Good,
Yes,
very good, thank you.
but thanks for doing exactly what I asked you today to do.
And just one last, Paris, on the Denton property, you're comfortable with the red and language, which was in red font that I sent you to be added
Yeah.
back into that? Okay.
I can live with it. Look, it's not necessary from a legal perspective, but if it makes them comfortable, fine. It doesn't hurt anything.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about interim town administrator responsibilities. I know I had a conversation with Greg, and Greg, welcome. I know this is your first meeting as.
It is.
As our. And my concern is that, you know, for the next 3 months, actually from now until May 3rd, is to most importantly, make sure that everything is in order to have a smooth and correct annual town meeting. And a big piece of that also is to continue the budget discussions from where we have here and take it offline with Jody.
Yep.
As we discussed, but I know that's pretty broad and high level, but that's typically this time of year, that's what we're doing from now for the next month, is to make sure that you know, everything, all the ducks are in a row so that we have a good town meeting besides the day-to-day operations of things. Do any other members of the board want to weigh in on this or have any questions or?
Well, no, I mean, I think that makes sense. So really, we gotta finalize budget, gotta finalize warrant motions. I think the budget book is something that kind of needs to, sometimes it's a last minute thing. Maybe we'll try to get in front of that a little bit. Because it's different. It'll be different this year than it has been in past years.
Thank you for reminding me about what I wanted to request is in the next couple of days, if the 4 other members of the board could send me a paragraph of, we're gonna put a letter in the town report, basically summarizes, you know, it goes on the front of the town report, the deadline's coming up, and rather than me just writing it, if each of you could just, it doesn't have to be a paragraph, it can be 19 pages if you want. We'll edit it down to a paragraph. But I think it's good to be collaborative, have everybody get some input.
When do you need it
by? If I asked Laura, she'd say last week. But I guess if you could, in the next 48 hours, think about it, then
I should read what some of the past letters were about, like, yeah.
Yeah, you know what, I will find what she sent me and I'll forward it to all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I'll try to keep it under 19 pages.
That'll be a good plan. All right, well, again,
Just a quick question on the budget book. So I looked at the one for this year.
Mhm.
So is it typically, and I'm just gonna talk based upon what I understood I saw, was the budget detail and the warrant article language, and then is it the motion for the proposed motion
no, it is.
included in the book or
What,
no?
what the budget book is, it's a document that's passed out at town meeting, because usually Article 4 is the budget.
Yep.
So, you know, in the way we, like I think everybody else in Massachusetts does, you know, we'll go through and we'll do a line item veto, so to speak,
hold.
right?
Yep.
So, you know, we'll make a motion and second it, we'll ask the FinCom to make their recommendation, and usually they recommend the budget because we've gone through all of this now.
Sure.
And then what happens is either myself or Mike will read through the budget, and you usually do it department by department. We don't go line item by line item. And then anybody who has a specific question about a specific department or part of the budget will put hold for that
Yep.
part of it. And then we'll go back in and drill down in detail and answer questions. Or the moderator will ask if they can get a question answered,
Okay.
right? Is that answer?
Familiar territory.
Right.
Yeah, so I know like Laura has lined up the printer,
Yeah.
so that's all set. Now it's almost like compilation, gathering pieces and figuring out how, you know.
But what we've got to do is we have to get all of that, because what's printed is what the budget is going to be.
I understand. So
Right.
the final version is what needs.
Yeah,
to
and I honestly don't know what her deadline, but it's got to be coming up soon. You know, probably I'm going to say within the next 7 to 10 days.
Yep.
So.
come on.
So I'm looking at David's list that he sent me, you know, the things he was focused on.
Yeah.
The previous PA.
Mhm.
There's probably 2 things I want to throw out. One is collective bargaining. We're going to probably need to hit that hard in the
Yes.
very near future, right? So I think anything, Greg, that you can, I think a lot of us are new to it. So from on the finance team, the select board, anything we can do to kind of gear up there and get some thought process around that, that would be helpful.
I know that we have already the various department heads, and Chief Kersey's on right now. And Labor Council have been talking about a lot of it. And we've got our piece we're going to discuss here, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I'd be curious about, is more future looking, is we've talked about grants, but the idea of getting some level of maybe canvas and focus on collecting what grants are either that being thought about in flight. Just a central point of coordination on grants might be helpful, because I think that's something we all have talked about saying in the future, having some centralization of grant pursuit and funding and follow-up is a good thing. So trying to think about how that could work, you know.
Yeah, right now, I know we found out that there is just like it was a submission for the congressional earmarks, there's one for the Senate. And I don't know if I remember if I forwarded it to all of you or not, but I spoke with somebody in Markey's office.
Yep.
And then, right, so that's something we talked about earlier today.
So from our
About making sure that gets filled out and so we hit the deadline.
But then what's community preservation looking at pursuing? What are they in the process of pursuing? Land grants, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of activity in silos. The more we can understand the whole picture and kind of bring some organization to it, I think everybody will probably be better off for it.
Right. Chief, do you and Nick want to come on over? Start heading over. All right. I don't think there's any other topics that did not anticipated, so. I move to enter into executive session purpose 5, Mass General Law 38, 2185, to investigate charges of criminal misconduct conducted to consider the filing of criminal complaints. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy session preparation for collective bargaining sessions, town hall union, highway union, police union, fire union, and to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the finance director. Is roll call.
And we will dismiss from executive session.
Yes, we'll adjourn from executive session. We need a roll call vote. Raleigh, aye.
Brugos, aye.
Howard, aye.
Hooter, aye.
Chanel, aye.
To everybody.
Thank you. So I'm going to move Brendan, Jennifer, and Karis to a room.
Can you make sure to put both of me in there? You'll see I'm in there twice.
Yep.
For some reason, my laptop speaker stopped working, so I'm on my phone as well. Thanks.
Got it.